Hello and welcome to the introduction for this course. What are the course requirements? You need a computer and internet connection to follow along with this course. Who is this course for? This course is for anyone who wants to learn something new. What is the course format? The format of the course is video. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I will be showing you how to install Python on a Windows 10 computer. This is the official Python website. So if we go to the Downloads tab, we can see that as of the time I am recording this video, the current version is Python 3.9.0. You can download and install Python directly from this Python website. However, there is a more cleaner way to install Python as an app using the Microsoft Store. All right, so you can go to Microsoft Store. That is how I'm going to install it in this video. This is a cleaner way to install Python. It handles auto updates and can be uninstalled easily. It does not update the path variable in a way that breaks other applications. To begin, let's check that our Windows 10 system is fully up to date. So to do that, you click on the Start button here and click on this icon, which is the Settings tab. It will take you to the Settings menu. So from the Settings menu, select Update and Security. And if your system is up to date, it will tell you. As you can see, mine says I am up to date. So make sure your system is fully up to date. If it's not, you can check for updates and then run any updates that are available. Next, let's go to the Microsoft Store. So in the search bar on the bottom here, just type in Store and it will bring up Microsoft Store. So click on the Microsoft Store. When the Microsoft Store launches, click on the search bar here, and in the search bar just type in Python. Once you've typed in Python in the search bar, just press enter and that will show you a list of Python available. So we are going to go for this one, which is Python 3.9. You can see it is free, so I'm going to click on it. You will then see the install button, so click on the install button to begin. You need to sign in if you've got a Microsoft account, so make sure you sign in with your email. Once you have signed in, you can see the download has started. When the installation is completed, you get this message that says this product is installed. And it'll ask you if you want to pin it to the start. So if you want to pin it to the start of your programs, you can do that. Okay. So I'm just going to exit this interface. To check Python has been installed, if you click on your start menu and you can see we've got Python here listed. Okay. So that indicates that Python has been installed on your system. So that's it for this video. In this video, I showed you how to install Python on a Windows 10 computer. Thank you for watching. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to install Python 3 on a Mac OS. Historically, Mac OS comes pre-installed with Python version 2. However, starting with the Mac version 10.15, which was released in October 2019, this is no longer the case. So Python 2 is no longer supported officially as from January the 1st, 2020. So if you still got Python 2, it's time to install Python version 3. There are multiple ways to install Python 3 on a Mac OS computer. The official Python websites recommends downloading it directly However, this approach can cause confusion around path variables. Also, it can be difficult to update and sometimes difficult to uninstall. In my opinion, a better approach is to use the popular package manager called Homebrew to install Python version 3. Homebrew can automate updates, and it can also juggle multiple versions of Python on a computer. So we're going to use Homebrew to install Python. So the first thing we need to do is open up the terminal. So here on the dock, I've got my terminal. So I'm just going to double click. If you haven't got your terminal on the dock, you can click on the Launchpad, and in the Launchpad search, just type in T, then select to click on the terminal, just double click, and that will launch the terminal. So the first thing we want to do is to check the version of Python we have installed. And to do that, you type in the word Python, you do a space, 2 dashes, dash, dash, and type in the word version. Once you've typed in version, hit enter on your keyboard, and that will return the version of Python you have. So as you can see, I have got Python version 2.7.10. So I'm going to install Python version 3 using Homebrew. So to install Python version 3 using Homebrew, we type in the command brew space install space Python 3. I've typed in the command here, brew space install space Python 3, and just hit enter, and that will install Python version 3 on your Mac. So I'll give it a few minutes to run through the installation. So Python 3 has been installed successfully. Anytime you want to refer to Python 3, you have to type in Python 3 because you have Python 2 and Python 3 on your machine. So to check that you have Python 3 installed, you type in Python 3 space dash dash version. So Python 3, you do a space and then 2 dashes, dash dash, and type in the word version and press enter, and that will return the current version of 3. So it tells you have Python 3.9.0. So that's the recent version of Python. So when you refer to Python 3, you always have to type in Python 3. If you type in just Python, it will refer to Python 2. Also, anytime you want to install any Python 3 package, you have to use the command pip3, because if you use pip will refer to Python version 2. Pip is a package manager that enables you to install Python packages. And when you install Python, you also have pip bundled with Python. So in order to distinguish the version of pip you are using to install Python packages, you have to specify that you're using pip3, which will refer to Python 3 packages. If you just use pip, it will refer to Python version 2. To exit your terminal, just click on the terminal and select quit terminal. So that is it for this video. In this video, I showed you how to install Python 3 on a Mac using Homebrew. Thank you for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create a virtual environment. What is a virtual environment? A virtual environment is an isolated Python environment. Virtual environments allow you to install Python packages in an isolated, self-contained environment. There are different packages that can be used to create a virtual environment. Examples includes the virtual env, the virtual env wrapper, and pip env. In order to use these packages to create a virtual environment, you have to install them to be able to use them. Python, however, has a built-in module that you can use to create a virtual environment. This is called venv. You do not need to install this because it already comes pre-packaged when you install Python. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create a virtual environment using the venv module. Before you create a virtual environment using the venv module, it's best to create a project directory and then change directory into that project directory once it has been created. And then you go to the command line interface, which is the command prompt on a Windows computer or the terminal on a Mac or Linux-based computer. Once you are in the command line interface, if you're on a Mac or Unix-based computer, you type in this command python 3-m. venv is the Python module that you use to create the virtual environment. You do a space and then you give the virtual environment a name. Some developers or programmers like to name their virtual environment after the name of the module that has been used to create it, as illustrated in this example. You can do the same if you wish. It doesn't really matter what you call your virtual environment. If you're on a Windows-based computer, the command you type is the same, but you don't need to type in Python 3. This is my Windows-based computer. I'm going to create a virtual environment on my desktop. So the first thing I need to do is change directory to my desktop. So I type in cd space desktop and then I'll press enter on the keyboard. And you can see it has changed directory to the desktop. So now I'm going to create a new directory. So I've typed in the command mkdir, which creates a new directory. I did a space and then gave the directory a name. I've called it BLS project. So I'll press enter and that will create a new directory on my desktop. So that's the new directory that has just been created. So I need to change directory into that new directory to create the virtual environment. So I'm going to cd into that. So here I've typed in command cd, which means change directory to this directory. I'll press enter and that has changed directory. You can see it's now pointing BLS project. So inside this directory, I'm going to create the virtual environment. So I've typed in the command python space -m space venv, which is the module that creates the virtual environment, space my env, which is the name I've called the virtual environment. I'll press enter on my keyboard. I will wait for a few minutes and that should be created. So if I open the directory here on my desktop, we should see the virtual environment folder, which is called my env. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to activate a virtual environment on a Windows-based computer. So I've got my virtual environment located in this directory on my desktop called BLS project, and I have changed directory by typing in cd space my env. My env is the name of my virtual environment. So you can see here I'm already in my virtual environment. So I'm going to type in the command that will activate the virtual environment. I've typed in scripts/activate. I'm going to press enter on the keyboard and that should activate the virtual environment. You can tell the virtual environment is activated because it displays the name of the virtual environment enclosed in parentheses. You can also deactivate a virtual environment by typing in the word deactivate. So I've typed in the word deactivate. So if I press enter on my keyboard, you can see the virtual environment is no longer activated because it is not displayed enclosed in parentheses. So that's how you activate and deactivate a virtual environment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create a virtual environment. What is a virtual environment? A virtual environment is an isolated Python environment. Virtual environments allow you to install Python packages in an isolated, self-contained environment. There are different packages that can be used to create a virtual environment. Examples include the virtual env, the virtual env wrapper, and pip env. In order to use these packages to create a virtual environment, you have to install them to be able to use them. Python, however, has a built-in module that you can use to create a virtual environment. This is called venv. You do not need to install this because it already comes pre-packaged when you install Python. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create a virtual environment using the venv module. Before you create a virtual environment using the venv module, it's best to create a project directory and then change directory into that project directory once it has been created. And then you go to the command line interface, which is the command prompt on a Windows computer or the terminal on a Mac or Linux-based computer. Once you are in the command line interface, if you're on a Mac or Unix-based computer, you type in this command, python3-m. venv is the Python module that you use to create the virtual environment. You do a space and then you give the virtual environment a name. Some developers or programmers like to name their virtual environment after the name of the module that has been used to create it, as illustrated in this example. You can do the same if you wish. It doesn't really matter what you call your virtual environment. If you're on a Windows-based computer, the command you type is the same, but you don't need to type in Python 3. So this is my Mac computer. The first thing I want to do is change directory to my desktop. So I've typed in cd space desktop. This is where I want to create the project directory. So I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard and you can see it's now pointing to the desktop. So now I'm going to create a new directory on my desktop. I've typed in the command mkdir space bls project. Mkdir basically is the command that creates a new directory and then you give the directory a name. I've called my directory bls project. So I'm going to press enter on the keyboard. You can see here the new directory has been created on my desktop called bls project. So I'm going to change directory into the bls project and then create my virtual environment. So I've typed in cd space bls project and I press enter and that will change directory. You can see here now it's now pointing to the bls project. So inside this directory called bls project on my desktop, this is where I'm going to create a new virtual environment. So I've typed in the command python3 space -m space venv, which is the module that is used to create the virtual environment, space my env. So I've called my virtual environment my env. You can call yours whatever name you like. So I'm going to press enter on the keyboard and that will create a new virtual environment inside this directory called bls project on my desktop. So we'll give it a few minutes to do that. So the virtual environment has been created. So if I open this project directly on my desktop, you should see I've got a folder called my env. This is my virtual environment. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to activate a virtual environment. Once you have created a virtual environment, you have to activate it before you can use it. So here in my terminal on the Mac, first thing I did was to change directory by typing the command cd desktop, which means I want to change directory to the desktop. And then I change directory again here, cd space the project directory. This is my project directory. This is where the virtual environment lives. So I want to activate the virtual environment inside that directory. So here I'm in the project directory. So I'm going to type in the command that will activate the virtual environment. So I've typed in the command here, source space my env, which is the name of the virtual environment, /bin/activate, and I'll press enter on the keyboard. And you can see here the name of the virtual environment enclosed in parentheses. If you see this, that means your virtual environment is active. Okay, so if you don't see this, that means your virtual environment has not been activated. So you can always deactivate a virtual environment anytime just by typing in the word deactivate. So if you type in the word deactivate and press enter, you can see that the virtual environment has been deactivated because it's no longer being displayed with parentheses enclosed in the name. All right, so that's how you activate and deactivate a virtual environment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to update pip. Pip is a Python package manager that is used to install Python packages. It gets updated fairly frequently, so it's always a good idea to check that you have the latest version of pip. So I'm going to update that inside my virtual environment. So make sure your virtual environment is activated. As you can see, mine is activated. So here in my command prompt, I'm going to type in the line of command that will update pip. I've typed in the command here, python-m space pip space install space -- upgrade space pip, and if I press enter on my keyboard, this will check for the version of pip. If I have an older one, it will uninstall it and then install a newer version. So you can see here it detected that I had a older version which it installed. It removed version 20.23 and then installed 20.3.1. So my version as of the time I'm making this video is up to date with 2.3.1. So that is it for this video on updating pip. Thank you for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to update pip inside your virtual environment. Pip is a package manager for Python and it gets updated fairly frequently. So it's always a good idea to check that you have the latest version. So I've got my virtual environment activated. So make sure your virtual environment is activated. And then I'm going to type in the command that will be used to check for the latest version of pip. It will download it and compare with the version you have. If the version you have on your computer is older, it will uninstall it and install a newer version. So I've typed in the command, which is python space -m space pip space install space /upgrade space pip, and then you press enter on the keyboard, and that will fetch the latest version of pip. It will check if the version you have on your system is older. It will remove it and then install a newer version. You can see here it finds version 20.2.3 on mine, so it uninstalled it and then successfully installed a newer version, which is version 20.3.3. The version of pip may vary from computers to computers. As of the time I am recording this video, the current version is 20.3.3. So that's it for this video. In this video I showed you how to upgrade to the latest version of pip inside your virtual environment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now. Hello there, welcome to this video. I will be showing you how to install Beautiful Soup. Beautiful Soup is a Python library that allows you to extract data out of an HTML and also XML related documents. The official documentation for Beautiful Soup is displayed on the screen. I will strongly recommend that you visit the link displayed so that you can read the documentation. I'll be showing you how to install Beautiful Soup on a Windows 7 machine. If you visit the documentation, there are instructions on how to install it on other platforms. So this is a Beautiful Soup official website, and this is the documentation page. So there is an option for installing Beautiful Soup. So if you click on that, it will take you to the installation part. So there are some guide here. Depending on the version of Python you have, it tells you how to install it. You may encounter some issues during installation. You can always come back to the documentation and see if the issues you have been covered in the documentation. There is an area that says problems after installation, so you may also have problems after installation. So feel free to look through the documentation. So I'll be illustrating the installation by using pip to install Beautiful Soup via my command prompt. If you're on a Mac, you could use the terminal, or if you're on a Windows and you've got Git installed, you can also use the Git bash terminal. I am going to be installing Beautiful Soup inside my virtual environment. You can see my virtual environment is already up and running and it's activated. So the reason for having virtual environments is so that you can have isolated environments for developing different things. So any package I install in this virtual environment is localized to this virtual environment, so it doesn't have to be available throughout the computer. So to install Beautiful Soup, I just need to type in the command pip. I do a space and I type the word install space and type in BS4 and press enter, and that should go out and fetch the package and then install it inside my virtual environment. You can see it's downloading the Beautiful Soup package, which is BS4. So it tells you successfully installed Beautiful Soup. So that's lovely. So how can I tell that Beautiful Soup is being installed? So the way I can tell quickly is to try and access Python from my command prompt. So to do that, I just type in Python and press enter, and that will launch Python. So you can see here, this is Python. I'm just going to type in CLS to clear my screen. All right. So you can see here, I tried to type in a command from command CLS to clear the screen, but notice here I've got an error because I am still inside the Python environment. So what I need to do is actually exit the Python shell. So to do that, just type in exit and you do the parentheses and press enter, and that will then return me back to my virtual environment. So now if I type in CLS and press enter, it should clear my screen. I always like to have a tidy screen. So now to access Python shell, I type in Python and press enter, and that will give me the Python shell. You can tell by this. So if I issue a command now, say 4 plus 4 and press enter, you can see it's returned 8. So I'm inside the Python interactive shell. So how do I know that I have Beautiful Soup installed? To do that, I can import it. So I type in import BS4, and if there's no error, I press enter. You can see here there's no error, which indicates that it has been installed. If you try to import something that you haven't installed, you should get an error. So this confirms that the Beautiful Soup installation was successful. So that's it for this video. In this video, I showed you how to install Beautiful Soup on a Windows 7 machine. Thank you for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to download and install Visual Studio Code. What is Visual Studio Code? Visual Studio Code is a free, open source, modern text editor. By open source, it means the source code is open for developers to contribute in making it better. Visual Studio Code is cross-platform. That means it will work across multiple operating systems. So it will work on Windows. It will also work on Mac. Visual Studio Code can be extended in functionality by installing extensions. So if you want to add functionality to Visual Studio Code, you can download and install extensions to extend its functionality. The official link to the Visual Studio Code is displayed on the screen. You can download the Visual Studio Code from this link and also learn more about the text editor from the link. To download Visual Studio Code, just go to the link that I previously showed you, and that's the link there displayed, and it will show up the download tab for your respective operating system. If you're running a Mac, it will display a download button for a Mac. If you're on a Mac, just download, extract, and then drag the DMG file, which is a disk image file, into your applications folder, and that will install it for you. If you are running a Windows like I am, just click on this download for Windows, and that will start downloading the files. There you go. It's downloading the files for installation. So I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes to complete the download. There you go. It has completed. So I'm just going to double click and begin the installation. So you will get a pop-up like this. I'm just going to click next. I'm going to check this tab to accept the agreement and click next. And it's prompting me for a location. I'm just going to accept the default location. It's telling you the disk space that is required. So I'll click next. Again, asking you to select a folder that it will install into. It's suggested a default here. I'm going to accept that and click next. And then we have some boxes here. It's checked here. Add path. This I would recommend you leave. If you want to add, for example, a shortcut icon. I'm going to click on that so it creates a desktop icon on my desktop, and just click next. If you're interested in the other options, just check it. Once you're done, click next and click the install button, and that will begin the installation. Once the installation completes, you are given this completion screen, and there is a box there to say launch Visual Studio Code. If you don't want to launch it, you can uncheck it. It also, if you've checked the option to create a icon on your desktop, you will get an icon like this on your desktop. So I'm going to leave the launch Visual Studio Code so that it launches it. I'll click the finish button and then it will launch the application. So click finish. So this is what the interface looks like here. So there's a file option that also has a preferences tab and a settings option. If you want to change the theme, for example, you can customize it by going here. You can see I've got a dark theme at the moment. If I click on color theme, and if I wanted to select a lighter theme, it will give you the options to, it tells you here, this is my default theme, which is dark. So if you want a lighter theme, just select one of the options. So this is where you can go and change your theme. If you haven't got the theme that you like there, you can always click on the extensions option, this option here, this tab here that says extension. If you click on that, and there's a search option that you can type in whatever extensions you want to install. While I'm here, there is an extension I want to install. It's called paste and indent. And what that does, it allows you to automatically indent your code. If you paste the code into your code editor, it will automatically indent it. So this is it. So if you want to install it, just click install, and that will install it. And you can see here it's doing the install. Once it's done, you can click reload, and that will reload the editor and tells you here the option has been enabled, paste and indent enabled. To learn more about the editor, there is a help option here, and there is a documentation here you can always go to. So that's it for this video. In this video, I showed you how to download and install Visual Studio Code. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. What is web scraping? Web scraping is also referred to as web harvesting and web data extraction. So web scraping is actually the process of automatically downloading a web page's data and then extracting information from it. The extracted information can be saved to a file or to a database. Let's take a look at some benefits of web scraping. So web scraping can be used as a component of other applications that, for example, can be used for web indexing. A good example is Google. How do you think Google's able to get all the information you need? It's basically through the process of web scraping. It can also be used for web and data mining. You can use web scraping for online price monitoring. If you want to monitor the price of certain items online, you can do that. You can also use web scraping for online price comparison. If you want to compare the price of different items, you can use that through web scraping. You can also use web scraping for product review. If you want to analyze and watch your competition, you can do that using web scraping. You can also use web scraping to gather real estate listing information and also weather data monitoring. So most people who work with weather can also use web scraping to gather data for the weather. You can use web scraping also to check if a website has changed content or something, so that can be useful. Also, generally you can use web scraping for different types of research. So these are just some few benefits or uses of web scraping. Let's take a look at some basic rules for web scraping. Web scraping is a very gray area, so you really have to be careful before you scrape any website. The actual process of scraping is not illegal, but you need to be careful where you are scraping the data from. So the first thing to do is to always check a website's terms and conditions to make sure you don't violate any of its conditions in order to avoid legal issues. This is very, very important. Okay. Also, when you are scraping a website, try not to do that too aggressively. When you do that too aggressively, it becomes a kind of spamming with your program, and this may overload the website that you're trying to scrape the data from and consequently break the website. So you got to be careful with the frequency of how you scrape a website. Also, it's a good idea to check the website layout from time to time. If you have a specific website you're scraping data from, the layout may change. So periodically you need to check the website to see if the web layout has changed, and then adapt your scraping code to accommodate the changes. So that is it for this video. In this video, I gave you a brief introduction to web scraping. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you the website that we are going to be scraping for this course, and the link to the website is displayed on the screen. This is a very basic one-page website that I quickly put together specifically for the purpose of this course. Although the website is very basic, the web scraping skills you will learn from scraping the website will be quite useful and can be applicable to other websites. You do not need any permission to scrape this website because it's a website I have put together for this course. So this is the website. Is a basic website that has a bunch of quotes and also the author or the person who may have been attributed to making that quote. So it's just a very simple one-page website that we're going to learn to scrape the data from this web page. So we're going to be scraping the actual quote itself and also the author of the quote. I will also be showing you how to view the source code of any web page. So the source code basically comprises mainly of HTML, which is used to put the structure or the content of most websites. So every website should have an HTML source code which you can view from your web browser. So to view the source code of any web page, for example, this web page, which is the web page we're going to be using for web scraping, all you need to do is right click on anywhere on the page, and this is applicable to any web page as well. Just right click and there should be an option that says view source. Okay, just click on this view page source and that will show you the HTML structure that was used to put the content of the website together. So all this here is the HTML structure that was used to put this web page together. Okay, so it's known as the web page source code. So you can see here comprises of HTML tag, that's the doc type, that's the HTML parent element, and then we have other nested element. We've got the head tag, we've got the title, we've got the body. The body is where the content, so any content you can see within a website is located between the body tag. So that's the opening body tag, and the closing body tag is usually right at the bottom before the closing HTML. So that's the closing body tag, and anything between the opening and closing body tag is where your content is. So all this here is placed within the body tag. All right, so I just wanted to show you how to view the HTML source code for a website, and it's applicable to any website as well. So that's it for this video. In this video, I introduced you to the website that we are going to be scraping for this course. I also showed you how to view the HTML source code for a web page. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello there. Welcome to this video. I will be showing you how to inspect elements on a web page. Knowing how to inspect elements on a web page can assist you in web scraping. I'm going to be inspecting elements from this web page here, which is the web page I have put together for this web scraping course. So let's say I want to inspect this element. I want to see how this here was put together, what elements were used to put it together. All I need to do is right click on it. Okay, and there should be an option that says inspect. So if I click on inspect, it will pop open a section within my web browser. You can see here, this is my web browser, and it tells me here, you can see if I put my mouse over it, you can see it is highlighted. It tells me that text that says word of wisdom was put together using an H1 element. So this is an H1 element, which is a heading tag. And you can also see there, if you look on this side here, you can see it's highlighted there. It tells you it is H1. And then you can also have a peek at the other nested elements within the HTML document itself. Okay, so that's one aspect of nesting. And also on this side here, where it's got styles, you can see the CSS that was used to put it together. Also, every basic website has a default CSS style that it comes with, but you can also apply your own CSS. So that's for that one. Let me close this panel, and let's say I want to inspect this element. I want to see how this was put together. I'll right click and go inspect, and that should take me to where that element is. You can see here it's taking me to the element. It tells me that that element belongs to a class, which is a paragraph class called author, and you can see the text there, and you can see the paragraph. And if I go over on this side where it's got style, you can see the color green. One thing with inspecting element, you can also experiment. Say for example, I wanted to try different color for this green here. I want to try to see what other colors will be suitable. I can just come here and just click on the color here where it's got color. I just double click on it. It will give me a color wheel, and I can just change it. So for example, I change it to that color. You can see here it has changed. Even though it has changed here, the moment I refresh my web browser, it will revert back to the original color of green. But it's a good way to experiment live to see what changes you can make on a web page, and then you can apply that later. So it only temporarily allows you to do this because you know, unless you are the owner of the website where you can change things from the original source code, it does not become permanent. It allows you to experiment, but it doesn't make the changes permanent because you don't own the website. So I just wanted to show you some of the things you can do while you are inspecting elements. So I'm just going to close this panel here. You can see the changes I've made here. It's applied, but if I refresh the browser, it will go back to the original color of green. Okay. So sometimes you can have elements nested inside other elements, and you may want to extract data from a specific nested element. So knowing how to inspect the elements is really important. So let me come here and right click on here and go inspect, and that will open up the panel. You can see here this paragraph class called quote belongs to this class here called div. If I click on here now, you can see it belongs to a div, and within that div is where we have the class for this paragraph, which is called a quote. We also have another class for the paragraph called author. So this here, which is the actual quote, comes on that. It's a paragraph class which is nested inside this div class called quotes. And also this author here, where we have the green strip, they are the authors. If I right click on that, you will see that that is also nested inside this class here called quotes. You can see the class called quotes highlighted. It tells you that is a paragraph class, and which is also nested inside this div element called quotes. You can see as I put my mouse on top of it, it highlights the entire area. So knowing how to inspect elements can come in very handy when you are scraping data from a website, because sometimes you may have to drill deep to pull out the specific data you want. So knowing how the page is structured and how to inspect the elements can come in very handy. So that is it for this video on inspecting element. It was just a brief video just to show you how to inspect elements. This is just a basic introduction. You can read more about it, or you can go just do a Google search, and that should come up with a lot of information on how to inspect element if you want to take it to a more deeper learning. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello there. Welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to start building the web scraping script that we'll use to scrape our website. So we'll need a text editor to create a Python script, and the text editor I will be using is called Visual Studio Code. This is Visual Studio Code. It's free, completely free to use. However, you can use any text editor that you are already familiar with if you don't want to use Visual Studio Code. All that matters is that you save the file with a .py file extension. So to begin, I'm going to create a new file. So I'll click on File, and I'll click on New File, and I'm going to save it. I do save as. I'm going to save the file inside my project directory, which is called Web Scraping, and I'm going to give the file a name. I'm going to call it quotes, and here make sure the type is Python. So I'm going to look for Python. That's Python there. So make sure you save it as a Python file. So I'll click save. Okay, and you can see here, once you do that, it changes, its highlight set here that you're now got a file that is a Python file. So any text inside here will become a Python script. So I basically want to start transferring the stuff from my command prompt where I did the prototyping. So the first thing I want to do here is import this library called URL lib. So I'm going to import that. So I just grabbed it from there. So that's the URL lib. And from that library, I am getting the request module. From that request module, I'm importing the URL open, and I'm referencing it as an alias, which is urec. So rather than call all this, I'll just call the alias I have given it. Next thing I want to do is import bs4, and from there I will grab the beautiful soup module. So again, here we've got the bs4, and I'm going to import beautiful soup. So you can see here I've now brought in the bs4 package, and from that package I've imported the beautiful soup. I'm also going to refer to this package here as an alias, which I'm going to call soup to make it easier to reference. So like I have done in the prototyping, I'm going to create a variable called quotes_page, and this variable is going to store the URL link for the web page that we are scraping. So I've got that, so I'm just going to paste that in there. Okay, I'm just going to tab down, and this is a variable I created called quotes, and that is the link, the URL link for the web page we are scraping. Next thing I'm going to grab from this prototype console, I'm going to open a connection to the website we're scraping so that it can grab the content. So I'm creating a variable called uClient, and I'm referencing this uRequest here, which includes the request module and the URL open to open the website so that we can read the content. So this here we'll grab the content, and this is a variable I created to grab the content. So I passed into that as an argument, and then here I'm creating another variable called page_html. This variable here will store the content that is grabbed by this uRequest here. So once it grabs the content, he opens it to download it and save it inside this variable called page_html. And then once you open a connection, you also have to close the connection. So this here closes the connection. So let me just paste that in there, and that will represent what I've just said. Next thing I want to do is parse the HTML that was captured by this variable here. So this is the variable I'm creating. So I'm going to create this variable and reference the beautiful soup module, and then parsing this page_html that will capture. So this page_html has now got the content of the web page we are trying to scrape. So we're storing that inside this variable called page_soup, and as another argument we've got the html.parser, which will enable us to parse the data. So this is what I have represented here from the console. So now we have the web page, which is stored in this page_html, which we are using in this variable called page_soup. We've referenced the beautiful soup here. Remember, I created an alias. That's what I'm referring to here, soup. And inside that, I'm parsing in this page_html and the html.parser that will enable us to parse and read the data that has been stored. So I'm going to end this part of the video here, and we'll continue in part 2. So I'm just going to do a file, and I'm going to save everything I've done so far. So see you in the next part. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to the part 2 of building the web scraping script. So we're going to continue from where we left off in part 1. The next thing I want to do here is grab this variable I created in the prototyping console. So I created a variable called quotes and set that to equals to page_soup, which is this variable. And basically what this is going to grab all the div element that has got a class called quotes and store them inside this variable called quotes. So I have grabbed that. I'm just going to paste that in here. So that's another variable called quotes, and this will store all the div class called quotes from the web page that we are scraping. So each of the quotes here is embedded inside a div. So this is one div here, and inside that div we have the class which is called quotes, and inside there we have the quote. We have a single quote, and which is enclosed inside a paragraph element, which is a class, and inside that we've also got the author of that quote, which is also embedded inside a paragraph class called author. So a div consists of a single quote and the author of that quote. So in order to pull the data, to pull each quote and each author out of each div element, I will need to create a for loop, and the loop will loop through each div, pull out the quote and pull out the author from each of the div. So to do that, I need to create a for loop to do the looping. So to create a loop, you just type in the word for loop. So I'm going to say for each quote in quotes. Notice this quotes here variable, for each quote in there, and each of inside this variable called quotes we have a single quote and a single author for each div element. So I'm going to loop through each one and pull out the quote and then pull out the author of that quote. All right, so now I need to create the other components for the loop. So inside the for loop, I've created this variable here called fav _quote, and this variable is going to store all the individual quote which belongs to the class called a quote, which is a paragraph element. So this variable here will grab all that and store it. And then this variable here, basically what this variable will do, it will grab the individual, it will pull the individual quote and strip out the tags and just leave the text, and it will also strip out the blank spaces as much as possible. That's what this variable will do. Okay, when you are using Python, you have to indent properly. If not, the code will throw a strop and will not work. So you can notice the indentation. So because I'm interested in two things from each div, I'm interested in grabbing the quote and also the author. So this variable here will store all the quotes, and this one here will grab I need to amend this variable. It's called underscore. So this, which is this variable here, and this will grab one quote and strip the tags and the blank spaces. So I need to do the same for the author. So I'm just going to tab a bit and paste that. I need to make sure the indentation is spot on. If not, it will not work. So again, doing basically the same thing here, created a variable that will store all the authors, which is nested inside a paragraph element, which are classes. So this will grab all the author and store it in this variable. This variable here is going to pull out each author from this variable here. You can see this is the index, so it will grab the first one strip the tags and spaces and just return the text. That's basically what that is doing. Now, to test that the loop is working, I need to print it out. Okay, so I need to add a print method. Again, need to indent properly. So this is my print method. So I passed into that print method, I passed in the name of this variable, which is a quote, and also passed in the name of this variable author. So that will print it to the screen. And if the loop works, then I can convert that and print it to a file. So I'm just going to click on file and click save all to save my document. So the script is basically ready to go. So that's it for this video. Our script is all done. In the next video, we are going to run this script to test that the loop is working, and if it is looping correctly and pulling out each quote and each author from the div, then we know that it works. Once we've got that going, we can then send or save the output to a file. So we'll do that in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to start prototyping the script that we are going to eventually build to scrape data from a website. By prototyping it, I can check inside the console or the terminal that it actually works in the terminal. So once I prototype it in the terminal and it works, I can then transfer what I've done in the terminal into a proper Python script that I will use later to scrape the website. Python has a package that is called urllib, which is used to work with URLs. So this package basically collects other modules. So within this package, there are other modules inside that you can use to work with URLs. So within the urllib, which is a package itself that collects several modules for working with URLs. So within that, I'm going to reference or use a module that is called request, because we're going to be requesting data from a website. And inside this module called request, I'm going to use a function called URL open, which will be used basically for opening and reading URLs. So I have got my virtual environment open. So the first thing I want to do is access the Python interactive shell. So I just type in Python and press enter, and that will give me access to the shell. So I want to access the urllib, which is the package. So I type in so from this package called urllib, I want to use the module called request, and from the request module I want to import the function called URL open. So this is how I would represent it. I'll say from urllib. So from this urllib, I am going to get the request module. So you do urllib dot request, and from this request module I am going to import the URL open function. So I'll do import URL open. Next thing I want to do, I want to give this an alias name so that I don't have to refer to all of it. So I'm going to do as, I'm going to refer to it as urec, which is URL request for short. So I'll press enter. So anytime you press enter, if there's no errors and you come straight to the command, that means everything is being entered okay. The next thing I want to do is import beautiful soup from the BS4 package. So to do this, I do from BS4. I am going to import. You have to import before you can use various modules or libraries. So from BS4, I'm going to import beautiful soup. You need to start with a capital B to say beautiful, and then the S in the soup has to be capital as well. All right, so from BS4, I'm going to import beautiful soup. So you can see there's no errors. The purpose of prototyping this inside the Python interactive shell is that if it works in the shell, I know it will work in the script. So I can just later take what I've done in the shell and transfer it to a Python script. The next thing I want to do is I want to grab this URL here, which is the URL for my website that I'm going to be scraping. I'm going to just copy that URL and I'm going to save it inside a variable. So I'm going to create a variable here to capture that URL. So I'm going to call it quotes underscore page, and I'm going to say equals to. Because it's a URL, you need to enclose it in quotes, so in single quotes or double, but don't mix the quotes. If you're using single, use single all the way. If you're using double, use double. So I'm going to paste that in, and I'm going to add the single quote at the end. So what this will do, it will capture this website. This is my website that I'm going to scrape, and store it inside this variable called quotes underscore page. You can give your variable any names you like. I've just given it this name. So press enter. Anytime you press enter and you get this return, that means it's accepted the request and everything is okay. I'm going to end this part of the video here, and we will continue in part 2. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to the part 2 of the prototyping of the script. In this part, we are going to open up a connection and then grab the URL of the web page that we are going to be scraping. So to begin, I want to open up a connection that will grab the page that we will scrape, which I have stored inside this variable called quotes underscore page. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to call this u client, lowercase u, and then uppercase C. All right, and I'm going to set that to equals to this alias here, which is the U request, which is referring to all this. I'm going to set it to that. So I'm going to say U rec. Okay, and inside that U rec method or function, I am going to pass in this variable called quotes underscore page, which also stores the URL for the page we are going to scrape. So inside the urec, I'm going to pass in the name of the variable, which is quotes underscore page. Okay, so and this variable here contains the link to the website that we will be scraping. So once I've done that, I'll press enter. Next thing I want to do is that I want to read from that website. So once I've read the website, we're going to grab the data and I want to store it in another variable. So this time I'm going to call the variable, create another variable called page. underscore, because it's going to be an HTML page, so I'm just going to call it page underscore HTML. And I'm going to set that variable to equals to this, the uClient variable. And the uClient variable, once that grabs the website link, I want it to read it, so I add a read function. And so once it's read it, it will then close the connection. So when you open a connection, you also have to close the connection. So I'm going to tab. So now once it's grabbed the link, I want the connection to be closed. So I'll say uClient dot close. So this close method will close the link once it has grabbed the website. It will grab the website, download the content, and store it in a variable called page underscore HTML. Once it's done that, it will then close using this uClient dot close method. Okay, so this uClient is a variable. I'm attaching this method called close, which will close the connection once it has grabbed and downloaded the content I have requested for. So you can press enter, and once there's no error, you know that everything is okay. So that's it for this part of the video. I'm going to end it here, and in the next part we will start parsing some HTML. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello there. In this video we are going to start parsing the HTML that was captured from the website that we are scraping and stored inside a variable. So what exactly do I mean by parsing? A parser basically is a software component that takes an input data, which is usually frequently text, and then builds a data structure of that, often some kind of tree structure may be established from the parsing of the data. So we've already got the content of the website we are scraping. We've got it stored in this variable here called page underscore HTML. So what I want to do now is create another variable that I am going to use to reference this variable called page underscore HTML, and then I will attach an HTML parser as an argument. So to begin, I start by creating a variable. I'm going to call it page underscore soup. All right, and I'm going to set that to equals to. Remember when I imported the beautiful soup, so from there I imported beautiful soup, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to reference this beautiful soup that I have imported here. So I'm going to say page equals to soup, and I'll type in beautiful soup. What I could have done, I could have given it an alias of soup, as I did with this one. I gave it an alias of urec that shortens the amount of text I have to write, but that's okay. So I'll set that to beautiful soup, and I'm going to pass in this variable called page underscore HTML. So I'll type in page underscore HTML. That will be the first argument. I'll do a comma. The second argument is going to be the HTML parser that will be used to parse the HTML. So I'll type in HTML dot parser. Okay, and I'll close the double quote. and close the parentheses. So this variable here now contains the website that we're scraping because it was stored in this variable, and also using the HTML parser to enable us to parse the data. So I'm going to press enter. So now that we have created a variable and we've got the HTML.parser, we can now start navigating through the structure of the data from that website. So this is the website we're scraping. If I just right click to view the page source. So what I want to do next is I want to create a variable that will store all the divs. I've got a few divs here on this web page, and inside this div I've also nested other elements. But what I want to do first is create a variable that will capture all the div elements from this page. So let me go back into my command prompt. So to do that, I'm just going to create a variable, and I'm going to call this variable quotes, and I'm going to set this to equals to page underscore soup. Okay, so page, which is this variable here. So I'm setting that to page underscore soup dot find all. This find all, you can also represent it as lowercase, like find and then underscore all if you wish to. And then for that method or function, I need to pass in the element that I am hoping to capture or store. So the element I want to store is a div. So in quote, I type in the word div and I end the quote, and then you do a comma, and next you do your opening curly brace. Inside the curly brace you do a quote again, and I need to indicate that the div I'm looking for has a class, and that is the class, and I need to give the class a name. So you put the colon, and then you do your single quote, and then you attach the name of the class for that div, and the name of the class is called quotes. I created the div called quotes, so I'll close that, close the curly brace, and then close the parentheses and press enter. So this will now grab all the div elements called quotes and store it in this variable called quotes. So if I open the website again, you can see here I've got a div class called quotes, which is what I'm referring to. I've got several of them, so that's what I'm doing in my terminal by storing all the divs in this variable called quotes. So if I want to navigate through the divs, I can do that just by referencing the variable name. So I'm going to end this part of the video here, and we will continue in the next part, which is part 4. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to the part 4 of the prototyping of the script. In this part of the video, we are going to continue the parsing and navigation of our web page that we have stored inside a variable. In the previous video, we created a variable called quotes, and we used that variable to capture all the div elements we had for our web page. So we've captured the data and stored it inside the variable called quotes. So if I wanted to check how many of such divs we have on the web page, I can use a function called len. So I'll type in len in lowercase. Okay, and inside the parentheses for that function, I can pass in the name of the variable, which is called quotes, which will have the information about the divs. So I'll close that parenthesis and press enter. So it returned 19. So it's telling me that I have 19 of such div class that is called quotes. Now, if I wanted to navigate, if I just wanted to see the first div element, so if I go to the web page now, this is the web page, this is the actual web page. If I wanted to navigate through the divs, all these are all divs. So this, the first one will have an index of 0, the second one will have an index of 1, and the next will have an index of 2, and so on. So if I wanted to navigate just this second div, it will be an index of 0, of 1. This is index 0, this is 1. So what I would do, inside here, this is the source code. So the div I am targeting is not this one, it's this one here. Okay, where this is the div I'm targeting, which is this one. So let me go back to my terminal. So to target that div, all I need to do is call the variable by its name, which is quotes. And then inside square brackets, I'll pass in the index, which is index number 1. Don't forget the index is 0 base. So 1 will give me the second div. If I pass in the index of 2, that will give me the third div. If I wanted the first div, I'll pass in an index of 0. So I'm going to press enter, and you can see it has returned the content of the second div because I passed in an index of 1. So now if I go back to the web page, you can see this is the second div. It says feeling gratitude and not expressing it. It's like wrapping a present and not giving it. So if I go back to my console, that's it here. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it. It's like wrapping a present without giving it. Now, if you notice here, it's returned both the text and all the tags associated with that div. Now, if I only want the text returned, I don't want any of the tags associated with that div, I could reference it like this. So I'll go quotes, and then inside the square bracket, I'll pass in the index, which is index 1. And then I'll do a dot text, which means I only want the text. And then I will attach a method or a function called strip. And what that will do, it will remove all the tags and just return just the text, and it will also remove some of the blank spaces. So I press enter, you can see the difference between this one and that one. So with this one here, where I've attached the dot text and the dot strip function, it strips all the tags and returns just the text, although we have some blank spaces. You can say the /n there just represent that this is where a new line should start. So basically it's putting the author of the quote on a separate line. That's what this /n is referring to. On the web page here, we've got this text here, which is kind of like the heading, which says words for wisdom. If I wanted to find out the elements behind that, I can do that from the console or command prompt. So if I right click here just to inspect the element, I can inspect it and I can see the kind of element I'm looking for. You can see here it's an H1 element. So now that I know it's an H1, I can now go back into my command prompt and type in page underscore soup, which is this variable here. So I do page underscore soup and I do a dot H1, which means I'm looking for all the H1 for this web page. So if I press enter, you can see here is return the text. is also return the tags. If I don't want the tag, all I have to do is do the same command, and I'll just do a dot text and then a dot strip. And what that would do again, it will remove the tags. If I press enter, you can see now it's removed the tags. It's just giving me the text for the H1. So that is it for this video. We will continue in the next. Hello and welcome to this video. This is going to be the final video for the prototyping before we start moving things on to a proper Python script. So in this video, I am going to do what I did in the other video. I'm going to create a variable that will capture certain data from the website we are scraping. So this is the website we are scraping. So what I'm interested in scraping here is each of these quotes and also the author. So I'm not going to scrape the heading. I'm only interested in scraping the content of the quote and the author of the quote. So if I go to the source page, each of the quote is nested inside a div element which has a class of quotes, and each of the quote is nested as a paragraph element which has a class of a quote, and also within each div we have another paragraph class called author which stores the author of that quote. So a div consists of a quote and also the author of that quote, which is represented here in the front end. So those are the things I'm interested in capturing: the quote and the author of the quote. So I previously created a variable that I used to store all the div elements for the quotes, and the name of the variable was quotes, and this is where I specified what I wanted to store in that variable. I wanted to store any div that's got a class name of quote. So I'm going to do the same for the individual quote and also for the author of that quote. So I'm going to create a div. It's not a div. I'm going to create another variable, and I'm going to call the variable fav, which is favorite underscore quotes. I'm going to set that to equal. So I'm basically going to do what I did here when I captured the data for the div element. So to do that, I'm going to reference this variable called page underscore soup. So I will say page underscore soup dot find. Oh, I meant to say underscore page underscore soup. If I don't use the underscore properly, it will not work. So page underscore soup dot find all. So this find all, you can represent it in, as I've done it, in camel case, or you can do all lowercase. You could do find underscore all in lowercase. So now for this function, it takes in the element that you are hoping to store in that variable, and the element I'm hoping to store is a paragraph element. So I do p and I'll do a comma, and inside the curly braces I need to specify that it is a class. So that's the attribute, and then I have to give the attribute a value, which is the name of the class, and in my case I called it a quote. That's the name of the class. So I will close the curly braces and then close the parentheses. I press enter. So now I've this variable here now will capture all the data or all the quotes. It will just grab quotes. There will be no authors in there, just quotes. So I'm going to create another variable that will capture all the authors only. So again, I'll do fav underscore, I'll call it authors, and I'll set it to equals to. So I'm basically going to do the same thing I did with the quotes. So I'll say page underscore soup dot find all, and inside the parentheses again it's a p element that I am targeting. So I do a comma and then do my opening curly brace. You do the quotes. I type in class because that's what I'm looking for, class. That's the attribute. You do a colon and then you give the attribute the value, and the value for that one I called it authors. I'll close the quotes, close the curly brace, and then close the parentheses, and I press enter. So you can see now I've now created two variables. One will store all my quotes and the other will store just the authors. If you're wondering how I got the names are here. So you can see here the paragraph class, this attribute, the value is author, and for the single quote I've got the paragraph class here called a quote, which is what I have represented here, a quote and then authors. Just like in previous videos, if I want to navigate through the structure of, for example, the paragraph classes, I can do that. So if I wanted to say find out just what the third quote is, so I'll do fav underscore quotes. I do my square bracket because I'm targeting the third quote, which is going to be index number 2. So I'll close the square bracket. I don't want any tags, so I'll do a dot text. I only want the text, and I want to strip the tags and also strip as much as possible any blank spaces. So I press enter. You can see here is returned just the text for the second index, which will be the third quote. Now if I go here and go to my quotes, this is 1, 2, 3. You can see this is one it has targeted. If I come back here, you can see here that is the quote there. Now if I want to do the same, if I want to find out, for example, the author of the quote above, I can access the other variable which is for the author. I'll do fav authors, okay, and then inside that square bracket I'll pass in the index of 2, close the square bracket, I'll do a dot text and a dot strip. Okay, I press enter. Okay, it looks like I have got an error somewhere, so I need to see what I did wrong there. Sometimes you may get errors. It's always good to take a look at what the errors is saying. So it's complaining that I may be out of the index range, maybe thinking I'm trying to call the same index I've referred before. So what I want to do, you can also call the variable by its name. If I wanted to see all the authors for the quotes, I can just reference the variable by its name, which is fav underscore authors. I press enter and that will return an array. You have to be very careful when you are giving your variable, when you're specifying your variable values, I have noticed I've made an error. That's why I had this index here when I tried to reference the index for the authors. That's because I have got an S. So if I go back to this page source, you can see here the variable class for this is author. There is no S, so I have spelled the variable name wrong. I've added an S. That's why it could not retrieve the value. So what I need to do now, I need to fix that. So what I'm doing here now, I'm reassigning the variable again, the same variable I created here. I've not done it again, but this time I'm giving it the correct name. So I press enter. Now I should be able to access the index. If I wanted to, say for example, if I call it do fave underscore authors, and I'll add the index of 2 and press enter. I do a dot text and a dot strip so that it only returns the text. I press enter. You can see now it's now returned something because I now have the correct name of the class. So these things can happen, but it's always good to check the error message and also check where you're getting the source information from. So that is it for the prototyping. So I've basically been able to prototype the data I'm trying to extract. So what I need to do now, from the next video, we're going to be building the script from this prototype, and then eventually we'll create a loop within the script that will loop through each div and pull out the quote and also pull out the author for that quote. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to test the web scraping script that we have built and check to make sure that it is looping correctly. So it will loop into each div, grab the quote, and also grab the author of that quote and print it on the screen. So we're going to test that in this video. We're going to be running the Python script from our terminal or command prompt. So I have cleared my terminal. If you are in the Python interactive shell, to exit the shell, you have to type in exit with the parentheses, and that will exit the shell. When you exit the shell, it will then give you the path to your virtual environment. Once you can see the path of your virtual environment, if you're on a Windows, you can type in CLS, that will clear the screen. If you're on a Mac or a Linux, or if you're using the git bash tool, you type in clear and that should clear your screen. So I am going to run this script, which is called quotes.py. I'm going to run it inside my command prompt. And the way you run a Python script, you type in the word Python, you do a space followed by the name of the script. I've called mine quotes.py, and I just press enter and we'll wait for it. You can see it is looping correctly. You can see here it's grabbing each quote from the div. This is the first quote, that's the line of the quote, and this is the author. So the loop appears to be working. So it grabs the quote and then grabs the author, grabs the quote, grabs the author, grabs the quote, and grabs the author. So if we go back to the website, we can see here that this here, let's see this one for example, which is the first one. It says I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. And the author here is Confucius. You can see here it says that the second quote, feeling gratitude and not expressing it, which is this, and the author is William Arthur Word. That's it. So the script is working as designed, and it is doing the scraping. It is looping through each div. If I show you the div, so it's looping through each of the div. So this, for example, is one div, and it's pulling out the text for which is the actual code, and also pulling out the text for the actual author. So I'm really excited about that my script is working as designed. So now the next thing I want to do, I want to export or save the output of this script into a text file. Now you can save the output to different type of format, but I just want to keep things really simple, so I'm going to save it to a text file. So I'm going to reference the script again. I just do a shift on my keyboard, and that will give me the name of the script, and then I do a space and do an angle bracket, and I'll specify the name I want to call the output for the script. So I'm going to call it, I'll just say my quotes dot txt. Now if I run this, it will not output on the console. Instead, it will output to a file called my quote as a text file. So let me press enter. You can see it has not returned any error, so it's returned back to the terminal. Now if I go into my project directory, I should have the output file. So that's the output, which is called my quotes.txt. So if I click on that, you can see this is the output. All right, that's the first quote, and that's the second quote, and so on. All right, so successfully being able to save the output of the scraped data from my web page into a text file. I will strongly encourage you to try and research how you can save to other formats like CSV, XML, and so on. Whatever format that you want to save to, research it and see if you're able to do that. And in doing that research, you will also build on the skills that you have learned so far in the course. So this concludes the web scraping with Beautiful Soup. So this is just a basic introduction that shows you how to scrape a website using Beautiful Soup. If you can scrape the process is the same whether you scrape a simple website or a complex website. Once you understand how to pull the data, to loop through the data inside the structure of the page, you'll be able to get the data out. Thanks very much for watching. I hope it's been useful. Please feel free to contact me if there are any issues. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.